We are recording. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 1 Degree Physio. I'm Dr. Caden. We got Dr. Chad here. And today's episode, we're going to talk about the insurance shift. So for those of you who are not aware of what type of business model we run when it comes to our physio clinic, we are a cash-based physical therapy unit. We don't directly contract with insurances, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I wanted to take this time in today's episode to cover some of that stuff, get Chad's perspective from his unique background in physical therapy, and just kind of have a quick little chat about the cash deal, the insurance deal, and sort of give you all as athletes or maybe future patients an understanding of where we're coming from and why we do what we do. So Chad, why don't you go ahead and fill people in on your history a little bit and kind of how we have made our way into why we do what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I started my career at an in-network center like most do. And really when I started as a PT, cash was not even really a thing. Certainly there have been people doing it and been doing it for a long time, but really the big wave is now where we're actually seeing cash PTs pop up all over the place. Whether that's good or bad, yet to be determined. But ultimately, I went out on my own and was going to do cash simply because, working at the large in-network centers was really difficult to do what I wanted to do. I do a lot of manual therapy. But there was a lot of movement education pieces that I wanted to be doing that I thought people needed that were above and beyond the standard home exercise programs that we were really providing in the clinic. But we were so jammed up for time because we had, somebody scheduled every 15 to 30 minutes. And so, most days I'd find myself with 2, 3, 4 patients an hour. And I was just bouncing, 15 minutes of manual to the next patient, 15 minutes of manual, 15 minutes of manual, 15 minutes of manual, sending them off with a therapy aid to kind of do whatever else. It's kind of the best we could make with the time. But ultimately, I thought different. I did things different. I wanted to do things wildly different. And so, seemed like my only out was to start my own thing and do it how I wanted to do it. And, I think for a lot of people, the idea of cash is you have greater control over what you get to do with your patients. And we do. We're not limited by diagnosis codes. We're not limited by, a referral for a certain pain site, which insurance, if it's knee pain, you can only treat the knee. So now we're free to treat multiple body segments at the same time, which is really what people need. We're free to evaluate everything and kind of come up with a plan to help people get well, not just make their pain minimize in a certain body region. But then, for me, the longer I did it, it really started evolving into really healthcare is a problem. And insurance is one of the biggest problems in healthcare because nobody knows what they're going to spend. There are not prices in healthcare, there are only fees. And nobody knows what those fees are until after they receive care and then they get their bill somewhere down the line. And ultimately what we think is that price transparency and direct contracting with a service provider ultimately gives people choices. It doesn't matter what the price is. As long as people know the price, now they can make an informed decision on their healthcare, which they currently can't do. If they go to the in-network center down the street, they're going to call the organization. They're going to be scheduled with whoever, wherever's close at whatever time works best. Not necessarily the best person for what you've got going on or for what your goals are and what your needs are. And so where it started is just, hey, I want to do what I want. I want to work one-on-one with people. That was a big deal for cash-based clinics is, hey, we're one-on-one rather than, 1-on-4. And we really wanted more control over how we work with our patients and the quality of care that we can provide. And over time, it's really morphed into the bigger problems with healthcare stem from insurance carriers. And we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when you are an in-network clinic, the framework is basically that, patient comes in, you spend an hour doing your evaluation, you make sure that you've got certain things down in these categories of codes that get reimbursed a specific rate. reimbursement changes as time goes on, all that kind of stuff. And then that's basically the model of how the plan of care spans out. But in that setup, how does that affect the patient experience and who the actual client is in the model?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of patients don't realize they're the patient, but they're not the client. Everything about an in-network center is built around checking all the boxes for insurance reimbursement. And because clinics can't control what they are reimbursed, they're much more inclined to justify seeing you for more visits so they can get more money. And so it's a really shady thing where it's like, I don't want to say it's shady because the clinicians don't know what they're going to get paid either. The clinic doesn't know what they're going to make. They can have an idea of, based on the current fee schedule of, if we do this, 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 and this, we're going to get about this. But always running in the background is, for therapists to get paid and make more money, they've got productivity bonuses that they have to hit. They have to bill a certain amount of units. They have to see a certain amount of patient visits. And so while the therapist does want to help you, they also want to help themselves, which means they have to play by the company's rules to make more money. And ultimately what that leaves is patients are being seen for more visits than they probably need. They're not getting the outcome that they're coming for. And it really just sets people up to spend more money than they should be spending. And, insurance companies are the client. Everything in-network centers do is built around, can we satisfy the insurance company? And then they squeeze in how much patient satisfaction can we get while we're doing these things to make sure we get paid. And so ultimately nobody's on the hook, right? The therapist isn't committed because they're getting paid an arbitrary amount somebody else decided from some third party. The patient isn't totally committed because they haven't exchanged any money for the service they're going to be receiving. They don't know how much it's going to cost. And nobody's even digging into, hey, what do you want? What are your goals? Why are you here? What's really important to you? It's really just about, let's check the boxes so we can get paid and see if we can help this person in the process.
Yeah, and I think that's, for me as a student coming into the whole deal, I got to see a little bit of that with in-network clinic A that I spent time at as a student, and just kind of, for me, realizing that, there was some number fudging going on, where can we shift some time around to make sure that we're hitting our productivity standards. And I just didn't really feel like what we had set up was enough to really progress somebody through something comprehensive. And, our passion is more around the athletic adult and individual that likes to move and do stuff. For that specific group of people in those centers, I didn't really feel like we had enough to offer them to actually get them springboarded past the injury that they had. They come in for a knee pain problem. You can only really do knee stuff because that's all that's going to get reimbursed. You can't actually look at what the ankles, maybe the shoulders or the neck or other things like that are up to. That could be contributing to the problems that they have at the knee. It just didn't really feel as free, for helping people and getting things done. But also as a clinician, I felt very bogged down by, charting. I wasn't charting for any other purpose than trying to make sure the insurance will say yes or no to letting me keep seeing these people. So I was very thankful for the early exposure, and then just to jump right into this world of how we treat people. But your experience with leaving and then coming back, maybe for a little bit more money, and just thinking, okay, maybe I could handle this, shifted pretty quickly. What was that like?
Yeah. So, when I left the therapy center, I'll just give a little background context to that. I left the in-network center. I took a part-time job elsewhere so that I could start NRG Physio. And then, so I stayed on board with that company for about 3 months while the new guy was kind of getting up to speed. Okay, so we decided, okay, he's ready, I'm out. So it was 100%, I was gone, didn't work there anymore. 3 months later, that guy had quit, and they called me and said, hey, Chad, will you come back and help us out? And so I kind of looked into that, and I thought, I can give you 10 hours a week. You know, I was probably looking back, it's probably one of the worst decisions I made when I was trying to start my business. Was I'm working part-time for one person, and now I'm working part-time for another person and really part-time for myself. And so my growth was really slow in that time period. And so I went back and they paid me like $20 more per hour in that 10 days a week. So my initial thought was, hey, if you're going to pay me this, I'll just come back full time. You know, I'll be making more than any therapist in the state at this rate. The first day I came back, I had 4 patients in the first hour. And that just wiped the slate clean on ever thinking I was going back to do that again, because it was an immediate slap in the face of why I left. It's like, look, I'm not going to see 4 people at a time and be, you know, moving numbers around to meet productivity and make sure that you're getting paid. I don't even want to be here. And so just a really, I mean, and from that point, it was like, look, I'm 10 hours a week. I'm going to do this for 5 weeks. Okay, figure it out. And so I left, and that was the last time I did that. It's the last time I ever considered that I was going to be an in-network therapist. Last time I considered working for somebody else. And so my next big steps were, how can I grow to a point where I can leave the other part-time job? And ultimately, we did that.
Yeah, and I think you're on the right trajectory with not only what we have going on the physio side of things, but we've got lots of other opportunities to branch out into different sectors of healthcare, from being free from the constraints of insurance and kind of what we can only really do as physical therapists. My coaching background, it allows me to continue to coach CrossFit and to take those skills and mesh them with what I do in here, and vice versa. Take what I learn in here and apply that to the real world in a much more robust way. And I think some of that creativity and freedom in learning and experiencing stuff would have probably been stifled, especially if I had to walk around in khakis and dress shoes all day long, which was a definite no for me. So from the patient experience side of things, I know people probably listening to this are thinking, okay, so you don't take my insurance, you know, is it going to be more expensive for me? Like, how expensive is it? How do I overcome the hurdle of paying for something out of pocket that I'm not used to paying for? How do you get the patients to understand that the shift that we're making with our relationship with healthcare is actually a better shift for them, depending on what their situation is?
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of comes back to the idea of the 1 degree, right? You know, something you mentioned earlier about being able to be more comprehensive versus just treating the one local area. And it's been our experience that making 1 degree shifts in multiple body segments that aren't working well have a massive impact on the pain side without even touching it. Similarly, making these 1 degree shifts in people's mindset and mentality about what self-care should really look like, what a patient experience should really look like. And ultimately, it comes down to, are we providing more value beyond the price point? And so the simple conversation is always this, is you're going to spend the same amount of money or more going in net, because they're going to see you more times per week. And if your deductible is $3,000, you're going to spend $3,000. Okay. So the only difference is it's not how expensive it is or not. An in-network center is going to cost you, $240 to $360 a week, right? And that's based on standard plan of cares of 2 to 3 visits per week. I've never been in an in-network center that recommended 1 time a week for anybody. Because they can't provide a good enough dose to get a response in 1 hour because they've got so many patients. So it's not about the money. Honestly, cash pay is the same or cheaper. You know, we're only going to see people once a week. So when you look at it in terms of a weekly amount that you're spending in network, you're spending $240 to $360. Cash pay, you're looking at probably $240 or less per week. Plus, we're going to solve your problem, 4 times faster. We can do in 4 visits what in network did in 16. That's just because we get the full hour to work with people and we can be comprehensive. It's helping people make these little shifts in their mentality about, hey, look, like you're trading money for your desired outcome, not for a healthcare service, right? And that's where we really have to be good about educating and explaining. Is it only sounds expensive because you're paying it up front with cash pay or out of network. Whereas in network, you're not seeing any money separated from your pocket up front. You're receiving all the care seemingly for free, but then everybody's surprised when they get a bunch of bills 3, 4, 6 months down the line, and it still costs them $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. Maybe they're not even done with care yet, right? So this is where we come back to that price transparency bit. It's like, hey, look, this is what you want. This is your desired outcome. We can do that for you in 4 months, and this is what it costs. And now people can decide, that's what I want. I can see how this works. It's worth for me to do that. Then we can accept health savings accounts and all that type of stuff too. But it's not more expensive. It's the same or it's less expensive. It's just you're paying for it and knowing what you're paying for up front versus not knowing who you're going to get, the quality you're going to get, and how much it's going to cost. You just get to find out later. And what we've seen is that we're more committed and the patients are more committed when they choose to pay us money to achieve the outcome we told them that we would get. And then we're on the hook because we told them we're going to get them the outcome. And so now we have to get it. And so for us, we're not trying to justify how we can see them more. We're trying to solve their problem as quickly as possible. Because if we say, hey, we're going to solve your problem in 4 months, and we get to 4 months and their problem's not solved, we're going to continue working with them until their problem is solved, because that's what we told them we would do. So it's not extra money. We're not trying to extend things out. That's bad for business. Because people are so accustomed to the traditional healthcare model. It's hard to kind of break people out of that, to think, oh, everybody's committed here, versus in network, nobody's really committed to anything except for the insurance company. That's where everything centers around.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of nice little rabbit holes we could dive into for later episodes when it comes to maybe long time in network clinicians coming out of that world and trying to shift into this new world that we're talking about. We could talk about what the experience is like for the PT student who might be listening to these types of things and thinking about what their options are and what their future looks like. But I think a nice place for us to probably wrap this one up is sort of a future look at where you kind of see, physical therapy in general heading in the next 5 to 10 years, what it looks like now, and what do you think it's going to have to look like in order for the profession to even be relevant in sports or healthcare in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think before the decade's out, therapy centers are going to be forced to go cash or out of network. And the reason for that is, businesses cost money to run. And this is really getting into the more administrative side of any business, whether it's healthcare or not. In-network therapy centers have a ton of overhead. They have to pay for the building that they have to pay for all the equipment that they have. They have to pay all the salaries and all the administrative staff and all of the therapy aides that help churn people through those environments. And ultimately, they pay those people more every year, right? Nobody goes to work anywhere with the promise of never, earning any more money. It's, hey, we're going to increase your salary, 2, 3, 5% per year. You get bonuses based on hitting these metrics. And so literally, just because people are working somewhere longer, the marketplace says they deserve to earn more. That's a slippery slope in and of itself. But what's happening is healthcare reimbursements are trickling down year over year. So your expenses are here and your reimbursements are here, but what's happening every year is they're getting closer and closer and closer to each other. There's going to come a tipping point where reimbursements no longer cover the expenses of overhead and salaries. And in-network centers are going to be forced to supplement with cash products and services, go cash altogether, or flip out of network. And that's going to create a lot of disruption in the market just based on, all those centers are based on physician referrals. They don't do a whole lot of direct access marketing. Physicians are required to tell people if they're sending them to an out-of-network center. And if they do that, the person is almost always going to just flop right back and say, well, who's in network? So physicians always refer in network. What's going to happen is people are going to be going out of network. In-network centers are going to be saturated with more patients that they can't keep up with. People are going to be trying to go out of network and opening themselves up to a ton of liability and fraud with insurance companies, because going from in-network to out of network is not an overnight thing. It takes years to get out of that stuff. But what's going to happen is all in-network centers are going to end up in a pickle where reimbursements are so low that they no longer have a viable business model. They're going to have to change what they're doing and how they do it if they're going to survive. It's just a matter of time. Even, the biggest places, the only way the big in-network centers can earn more money is to add more overhead. It's like, hey, we can treat more patients and earn more money, but we have to add a therapist to do that. And, ultimately their profit margins are capped and they're shrinking, which profit is not how much money you make. It's how much money's left after you make money and pay all your expenses. And so I think the real big shift, and I think by the time the decade's out, is all the big in-network centers, the small in-network centers are going to be having to take a hard look at what can we do to improve our cash position. So, really, patients are never, it's not on their minds at all, but like consumers really need to be confronted with the fact that like they're going to have to pay for that service. They're already paying for it. They're just paying for it in the worst way. They're getting billed for something that they're receiving after the fact. Nobody understands, they think I pay $1,000 a month for my premium, so they think they have great coverage. They never stop to consider what their deductible is. And nobody even understands like, oh, once my deductible is met, I still have an out-of-pocket max, right? So, stuff like this shouldn't be covered under insurance. You should pay to take care of yourself and save your insurance for the car accident, the heart attack, the cancer, and stop nickeling and diming yourself to death trying to receive crappy care with crappy coverage that you just pay for later. The cost is the same. What's more expensive, $2,000 or $2,000? What do you think?
$2,000.
If we're just looking at it in terms of money, the cost is the same. So now what's more expensive? $2,000 in a referral to a surgeon, or $2,000 and you got all your problems solved?
Problem solved.
Yeah. So now the $2,000 plus the referral to the surgeon is the more expensive option. And so there's just so many different ways that we need to be looking at this and kind of separate people's mindsets away from everything needs to be covered by insurance. I'm not going anywhere unless it's covered by insurance. And we need to shift our mindset to who's the best person for me? What is my desired outcome, and can they help me get there? That's every other service on the planet, right? People buy products because it's going to solve a problem for them and they see value beyond the price point. That's why people buy cars. That's why people buy houses. It is an experience that they want and desire. It's the outcome that they want. Nothing else on earth except for the American healthcare system works like that. Everybody says, here's what I want, here's the price point, am I going to pay it to have it? Healthcare, it's do you take my insurance? Yes or no? And they no longer consider value, outcomes, quality. It's just the insurance model has flipped so many of like purchasing concepts over that it no longer makes sense. And right now we're seeing big waves in healthcare with direct contracting, direct primary care, direct physio, and it's really a big shift is coming. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think 10 years from now, things don't look anything like they do now for services like primary care and physical therapy and some of these tertiary things that are on the lower end of the price spectrum.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway point here is if you're a consumer, if you're a patient or an athlete, start to value yourself a little bit more. If you only worry about whether or not you can use your insurance, whether it's good insurance or bad insurance, whatever that means, and you're just going wherever they tell you you can go, are you really thinking about yourself? Are you picking what's best for you? or are you just picking what you think might save you some money? It's kind of like, you might save money buying the Go phone at Walmart or whatever, but you really want the iPhone. And so it's kind of that same mindset. You pay for what you get if you're a student. Yeah. And if you're a student, or you're thinking about maybe applying to physical therapy school, or heading down this path because you like what the job has to offer and what it looks like, really think about what you want your everyday life to look like. The experience in these in-network centers is nothing compared to what you can experience in a center that's different. And that's super important. So I would say moving forward, just, you guys, if you listen to the rest of the episodes in this podcast, you understand where we're coming from. This is kind of like laying the groundwork for what we think, what we believe, and how we try to help people. And I think it's always important that you consider what's most valuable to you and what's going to get you the best result, whether you're picking a physio, picking a chiro, going to your primary care physician, whatever that looks like. Just care about yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely get what you pay for, and you pay for insurance, and they don't care like who you go see. They fix the cost. It doesn't matter to them. And so getting hung up on like, well, I pay for insurance, so I want to use it. That's great, but you just got to understand that you're probably not going to get the outcome you want or need or deserve by focusing on your insurance and your deductibles and your co-pays. Focus on yourself. You're not going to be any more money out of pocket. If you go see a cash provider somewhere and it costs you $2,000 or whatever it costs, and then something bad happens, and you're not going to be sitting around thinking, oh, I wish that $2,000 had went towards my deductible. Because honestly, if something bad happens, you're going to hit your $20,000 out of pocket maximum. And that money you spent to take care of yourself earlier in the year is still going to be a good decision that you made. It's one of those things where we got to shift the mentality to how can we help people, and how can we help people get what they want, and then make it as affordable for them as possible, through accepting HSAs, using our third-party financing vendors, which can really break the payments down. Like you can receive a high quality service for almost nothing on a monthly payment, just putting it on some financing. And so think about yourself. We'll figure out how to make it financially tolerable, whatever that looks like. But the main thing is you live a high quality, high performance life because you're focusing on yourself and getting yourself well, and doing it with high quality practitioners like Dr. Caden.
All right. I think that's a good place to kill the episode. If you guys enjoy listening to these, please rate the episode, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if that ever gets put on there. Share it with your friends. Like the video if it's on YouTube or Instagram or wherever we put all that stuff. Be sure to follow and be on the lookout for more episodes. We have lots of cool stuff that we want to talk about and share with you, try to make your lives better, and try to divvy out the knowledge and the passion. So until next time, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.